Hi guys! If you're interested in product photography and want to learn how I took and edited this photo, this video is for you. So step number 1, briefing. So the Moose Drink asked us to provide them with product photography for their newest product line. It's a 1-sip drink released in 3 flavors, peach, grapefruit and blackberry. And they asked us to give them product photos that bring summer and fruits and juices into the equation. So our idea was to bring some dynamics onto that product shot, to bring fruits into the equation as well. We wanted to create those frozen motion effects. And in order to do that, we had to buy some simple props in the form of fruits and juices. The next super important step is location. So it's important to mention that the Moose Drink, the whole branding is really focused on the outdoors. So we decided to continue this trend onto our photos. We really focused on what the brand image is. We didn't want to interrupt it and lock them in a studio, which is very much in line with what we do at Destination Collective. So just before we started, I made sure to chop up those fruits to get the color out of it, to make photos look even juicier. So before we started shooting, we made sure that we found that sweet spot, this beautiful location. We were so lucky to find a beautiful flower bed filled with daisies. And I really think that despite all the motion and all the fruits happening in the background, those flowers and that greenery really added extra 50% to the spectacular effect that this photo has. Moving on to the next step, let's talk about camera gear. So first of all, I use my Sony a7R III altogether with Tamron 24-70mm f-stop at 2.8. That's why I could get this beautiful bokeh. But my shutter speed was quite high, and that's exactly what allowed me to capture this frozen motion effects. And on top of that, I decided to use a light reflector. It was extremely helpful because remember guys, when it comes to product photography, yes, the whole background, everything is important, but the number 1 priority always is how the product looks. If a product doesn't look amazing, the whole photo is just not gonna serve its purpose. So again, thanks to Greg helping with a light reflector, I managed to bounce some light off the reflector right into the product, right into that label. So it worked really nicely all together, showcasing the bottle in the best possible way. Next point is camera settings. So when it comes to motion photography, the most important thing that you have to think of is your shutter speed. If your shutter speed is a little bit slower and you've got loads of motion, you're gonna find it a little bit more blurry, and this is not what you're looking for here. You're looking to freeze it. You're looking to, with all the liquids, with all the drops and fruits falling, we want to capture the moment and get it frozen and still. That's why the faster shutter speed, the better. Next point is f-stop. I kept it around 2.8 up to 3.2 because I want to get this beautiful bokeh, this beautiful depth in the background. I have to admit that because it was a sunny day, it was a really beautiful light, and despite this super quick shutter speed, I didn't have to up my ISO too much. I think I kept my ISO around 100, so that's the perfect sweet spot. That's what we are looking for when it comes to product photography. Another point is inspiration. It's super important, guys, to remember that when it comes to photo creation process, just like any other creative process, we think that the best ideas comes from brainstorming and just thinking, but I find myself bringing the best ideas from consuming. So throughout hundreds of hours that I spent checking and looking at so many different product photos, I did notice quite a few that had this amazing frozen motion. So I added my own touch to it. I mixed fruits, I mixed liquids, we went outside, and I got my unique photograph. With this photograph, it was quite a complicated process. It definitely wasn't possible to get the whole shot just in one go. So I knew in advance that it's gonna require layering. That is all based in post-production. So in order to do it right, I had to split the photo shoot into 3 steps. So the first step was to get a clean and sharp product photo. No fruits, no liquid, nothing, just a light reflector and my product. That was step number 1. And that photo I used as a core base to whatever else was put on top of that. So on to the next one. Step number 2, it was all about Greg throwing fruits from the top. So we photographed the product in 3 flavor variations. So we had grapefruits, we had blackberries, and we had peaches. So Greg helped me massively with throwing those while I was sat down there taking photos of that motion that I could put on top of my core photo. And then step number 3 was Greg throwing liquids. Again, so much fun, splashing the whole set. So you see that it wasn't liquids on top of fruits. Everything was separated into 3 individual steps. So before we jump onto editing the photo, I'm gonna leave you some tips that you want, especially if you are a beginner, especially if you're an aspiring product photographer, that will save you whole loads of work in a post-production. So first thing, make sure that at every step that you're getting your product, fruits and liquids, your camera has to be left in the same position. If you move your camera right or left, the whole idea is gone, because it's gonna really probably not gonna work out. Because of post-production effect, you're gonna have photographs on top of each other that they're simply not gonna match position-wise. It's gonna be super difficult. So make sure that your camera is on the same place always. Tip number 2 is very similar one. Make sure that your product is still as well. When you're going to be throwing things, throwing fruits, there is a very high chance that you're going to knock your product again, putting it back. There is high chance that you're going to move it onto a different spot, and it's going to make it extremely difficult for you in post-production again. All right, so at this stage, you should have your photos taken, and we've got the most important part ahead of us, which is editing. So stick with me and let's jump onto the editing part. If you are enjoying this video, please drop us a like button, consider subscribing. If you have any further question, feel free to drop a comment. We're more than happy to answer all the questions that you might have. So before I started editing and retouching the photo and I went through my selection process, I knew that I wanted to take this photo to get blackberries on a floor and put it on top of my base photo, which is this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get blackberries out of this photo and keep the rest as it is originally. What you can see I'm doing is I placed blackberry photo on top of the splash photo, and now I'm going to use the erase option to get rid of things that I don't want to keep, which on this occasion is pretty much everything apart from fruits at the very bottom. Go, we got our blackberries at the bottom of the bottle. At the same time, we kept splashes with us. Let's move on to the next step, which is adding extra splash onto the photo that we've got so far. Alright, so we can see that even at this stage, the photo is already looking pretty good. We've got our splashes added, not too many, but just enough. We've got some fruits statically laying on the floor. So let's now move on to the next step, which is working on the bottle. As you can see, I'm sourcing the bottle from different photo that I took using the light reflector, and that way I got the best detail, the best sharpness of the bottle on that photo. And now I'm going to move it onto the photo with splashes where the bottle didn't look as good as it could. And remember, that's our key priority when it comes to product photography. As you can see, I'm working separately on making the label look good. and separately on making cap and the neck look good as well. So yeah, it's not an easy job. A lot of detail is required. So when it comes to this stage, my core advice to you guys is to just make sure that you bring this attention to detail, that you're patient and spend proper amount of time making sure that your bottle looks perfect. After that, we are moving on to step 3, which is bringing flying blackberries onto our photo. So again, we're going towards layering process. I pre-selected quite a few photos that I wanted to get blackberries from, but just as a side note guys, remember that you don't have to use every single photo that you pre-selected. You experiment, you see what looks best as you go. As you can see, I keep my layers open on the right hand side. If I wanted to get rid of certain blackberries, I can do it at any time by hiding any of the layers that are visible. This way I make sure that the photo still looks natural, it looks its best. This process requires quite a lot of precision. There are no shortcuts here. It can take over 1 hour to edit just one photo itself. Alright, so we're almost there. We got our splashes, we've got fruits, we've got bottle looking almost perfect. However, with the next step, I'm going to go much more into detail when it comes to bottle. I can see that the angle is not quite perfect, so I'm going to cheat it a tiny bit. I'm going to add some extra bits on the side because again, just like I mentioned before, I really want the bottle, the product itself, that is the center of attention, to look as good as possible. So that's it, we've got our photo ready and I hope you've learned a lot from it. Alright, so that's it for today. I've taken you through the whole process of taking commercial product photo. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're new here and you're interested in photography, videography and digital marketing, please subscribe and we'll see you in the next video.